for the first time in, God, I can't even remember how long
Are
it's
you
been.
having coffee?
No, I pulled an all-nighter.
Oh no. Oh, you can't put that out into the world, man. Oh, wait, what?
Yesterday I woke up at 5:45 and it is now 10:15 the next day and I have yet to sleep.
Oh my God. That's a sustainable lifestyle, Cormac. You should see how far you can push that.
S- Hey, you know what? I mean,
Are you at the
I
loopy stage yet?
no, I almost actually, well, I don't know. Does, ooh, the sun's coming up. I should go hit the trail.
Yeah. Well, the
Is
thing
that
is
loopy?
like now you've introduced like a new thing or back into your life,
Yeah,
and and you're trying to live your normal life at the same time. So
yeah.
this can't end well.
Uh,
Can it? I mean, really?
oh, it could end,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure if it's going to be well.
At your age, you should not be. Well, like wagging my
Exactly.
finger at you.
I know, right?
Oh,
No, honestly, the biggest reason was constant InDesign crashes
oh no. I remember that
over.
time. There's an episode back there where you had this crazy Revit project takedown crash, right? And it was like some
Yes.
piece of casework from
Yeah,
Steel
yeah.
Case or something like that.
It
But
was it was a family taken from some manufacturer that had something,
it had like
some corruption.
Asian file name characters that Revit couldn't handle or something odd, like that was
Yeah.
buried deep inside nested families or something like that. And it's
Yep.
like, this stuff is the stuff that no one should ever have to deal with, but it happens all the time. And
No, this just goes to my gripe, my constant gripe that people who buy our computers should actually ask the people that work on those computers,
if they're the right
hey,
computers.
exactly. You're going to be doing a lot of, graphic intensive stuff. Do you think just a normal laptop slash workstation is good enough for you?
I mean, the other
No is
problem is that
no is the
Adobe,
answer.
yeah, the answer is no. Adobe's like Revit in that way where the
Oh my
code is
gosh,
so
yes.
old, right? There's
Yeah.
so many band-aids on top of really old. I mean, there's code in Photoshop that's got to be 25 years old,
Hmm.
maybe
Yeah.
more. And modern computing is so different now, but it's a lot of hard work to go back and swap that stuff out for more modern frameworks, and because as soon as you do, it breaks everything else, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
the nature of coding something over the long haul, is that it's just it's duct tape and twine, right, holding it together.
Isn't it, but you would know better than I would, but wouldn't just rewriting it so it's more optimized for a mobile usage
Oh
just
yeah,
make far more sense?
well, yeah, but it's just that's probably a $10 million effort. It's something insane. It's crazy how expensive it is to develop software because it just takes so much time. And then everyone would just be
But
waiting
is
for
it
it, right? Everyone would be
but
waiting for
is
it.
it isn't it crazy how much they charge us for old crappy,
Yeah,
software
yeah. So
that
it
literally
so
is outdated? It's like, "Oh, hey, I'm going to go buy the most up-to-date Yugo." Really?
hmm.
I mean,
Well, there are other options out there, but then you get into the whole conversation about training costs and assets that you already have libraries full of to plug into said software that you depend on a day-to-day basis. And
well,
people
I'll
don't
give
like to use new things, and change
I'll
is
give I'll
difficult.
give you a great example. I mean, right now, apparently, either it's because of cost or maybe it's not playing well with the end user or whatever, but we are making a decision to go away from SketchUp
Hmm.
because, and I believe it's mostly cost or,
They did change their
licensing or
licensing.
something.
Yeah, they changed their
I think
licensing.
it's, yeah. And so you should see, you should, you know, the revolution that was, ready to start because of the loss of SketchUp
Mm-hmm.
was pretty massive.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, me being one of them too, I was just like, you're kidding me. So now I've got to go in and, I've got to learn Rhino or I've got to learn Format. And yeah, because I've got all the time in the world to basically do that is in between all of my late nighters or all nighters.
This is it. This is the conundrum. This is the architects hate
Yeah.
two things. They hate the way things are. I mean, here you are complaining about
There you
InDesign and
go.
Revit, and
Full
and
circle.
and then they hate change, and you don't want to give
Hate
up
change.
your old crusty SketchUp, right? Like this is where we
I,
are.
I I wouldn't mind giving it up if I honestly could. And obviously I'm gonna have to learn Rhino or whatchamacallit, Format.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I haven't had, I hate to say it as an excuse, but I haven't had the time. I mean,
There, yeah, you have to make
I,
time. It doesn't just show
yeah,
up. But I mean, also the thing I think that a lot of people don't think about it this way, but it's the truth, especially for someone like you and for people who've been around for a while. It's a nice way to say we're
wow.
the oldies here. Is you already know how to use these other programs. Honestly, you do. You knew how to use AutoCAD. You know how to use SketchUp. Like that is what Rhino is a child of those two programs. Like, and I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but like you already know how to use these things. It's just what people don't like is they don't like looking at something different. They don't like searching for where the tool is, and they don't like feeling like they're slower in something, even if that's temporary. And these are all kind of the psychological things that surround
Well,
switching apps, you know?
that is true because the first software that I learned was MicroStation. I think it was MicroStation 95.
Yeah, me too.
And and then and that was kind of like in the interim between, the time that I dropped out of school and was working for a firm, and that's the program that they used was MicroStation.
Right.
So I went back to school, and there it was funny is like when I left school, we were actually using Form Z and we were on Macs. I left, went into the PC world. I came back and the school had converted to PCs and they were using CAD. And so I was watching people like draft on, in AutoCAD, and I'm like, God, this is so slow. I mean, it's just like 15 different steps to do one step that
Mm-hmm.
you could do in MicroStation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I used to race people. I used to like challenge people to a race, because they had MicroStation and that, and I would just like, say, watch that. Oh, damn, I'm done. And then and they're just like, wait, I'm just still trying to find the line tool. And so, yeah. And then what's funny enough is that what did I end up using when I went out into the real world?
AutoCAD.
AutoCAD.
Yep.
And then Revit,
You
and
kind
all
of you
this.
just learn what you have to learn, and you don't want to
Well,
add
to
a
be quite
bunch of
honest with
tools to
you,
your toolbox. But at the same
honestly,
time,
to be quite honest with you, I mean, I'm more than happy to actually learn Format or Rhino if it's something that integrates easily into Revit, so that unlike SketchUp, that you would lose a lot of your production time by trying to either convert something from Revit into SketchUp or vice versa. I mean, and we do that often, a lot of times, just to kind of like get real quick, fast clay models and things like that.
mm-hmm.
But obviously, you can do that with the tools that are inherent to that work well with Revit.
Mm-hmm. Because you
And what
still
am I
got to
talking
make a
about?
set of
I don't
drawings.
I don't draw that much anymore,
Yeah.
which is sad to me, but still.
Well, and honestly, like that is I've talked about that so many times. That's the answer is to have somebody else do it, and you need to guide them, mentor them, transfer your knowledge to them so that they can
Hmm.
become better architects and take your hands off the wheel. I want to walk over with a wooden ruler and smack your hands. Get off, get away, step away. Enable somebody else.
It's so funny too because like this, and the reason why I was up so late is because we were trying to get a concept submission out the door, and we don't have a lot of staff on the project right now. they're coming, but they're not here yet. And so, it was basically all hands on deck. But my role is, as project manager is a little bit different than, my role as a project architect would be. And so all I wanted to do was just jump in and draw. Like, just give me a building. Look, oh, look, there's the academic building. Let me go ahead and work on that. No, I can't. I'm sad
Because why? What do you mean
because
you can't?
because I have other things to do.
No, we got too
I
much to
have
do.
I've got, reports to write and narratives to write and basis of design narratives
All the other
and
stuff.
and orchestrating the consultants and everything else. And the good thing is we've got a really good, robust, like, project management team together. So yeah, I can't really divulge too much information right now, but it's it's insanity is what it is.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
It's
Doesn't sound
paperwork
sustainable.
insanity.
It can't
It
sustain
does.
insanity.
No, no, not at all. All I want to do is sleep.
And I'm like, hey, let's record a podcast. You're like, you just can't say no.
I was like, well, actually, that's probably my biggest problem is I just can't say no.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Yep.
Although the only thing that I've said no to right now is sleep.
Sleep. Yep. And you're not drinking coffee or anything, so I, I don't know how you're doing it.
And I haven't drinking coffee. Yeah, no.
Just caffeinated tea,
Or should no, no, I don't even drink
non-caffeinated
caffeinated
tea.
tea.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, unless I'm missing something that lemon ginger tea is caffeinated, I haven't. It says,
Wow,
uh,
that's crazy.
yeah, water, lemon water, and lemon tea.
Well,
It's the
I'll
lemon.
pray for you,
It's the
Cormac.
lemon.
Wow.
Uh,
I just
I was actually,
I just can't
I
believe
was
that
actually,
this is an expectation that a deadline can be that short and have nobody working on the project, and like the people who are there are just gonna, yeah, just that just sounds like poor project planning to me. Sitting over here on the other side,
it could be a
judging
little
from
bit of that.
afar.
Well, here's an interesting thing that's going on in the architectural world now that we are coming out of COVID. People are starting to work again, meaning that a lot of projects, especially in the commercial architecture side of things, especially in higher ed, a lot of projects went on the shelf
Hmm.
because we weren't sure what the climate was going to be. And so, it was interesting as we, looked through the year when we started in March of last year, we talked about our billing. And then as we went throughout the year, you saw that billing slowly start to creep down. And so, we normally look at things as a 6 month, 9 month, and 12-month backlog. And as you start to see, like, we're at 12 months, and then you start to see things creep lower and lower and lower, and you start to, like, come out of that backlog comfort zone, and then you start getting into the territory of, like, uh-oh, like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's, make sure that, because we didn't do any layoffs, and we were able to, with our backlog, sustain everybody's employment throughout, the challenging time. But a lot of people slowed down, and a lot of projects went on hold. And yeah, we were going after pursuits still because they were still issuing RFPs and things like that. Well, fast forward a year and a month, and here we are in the, okay, I want to do this project now.
Hmm.
But you've got this person who wants to do their project, this person who wants you to do their project, and so on and so forth. It's a good problem to have until you get to the point where you're like, oh crap, we don't have a lot of staff to handle this extraordinarily large influx of new work coming in.
Hmm.
And so you staff all of the projects so that you have them attended to, But you also are, kind of like suffering because you don't have enough people for larger projects or smaller. I mean, because you're still going to need, depending on the size of the project, you're still going to need a reasonable amount of staff so that you're not overworking the people, whether it's a small project or a big project. And, unfortunately, you just can't find people. It's just, ooh, I want that guy. Oh no, he's working on this and that and this and that.
Yeah.
And so, it's just that's the that's where people are right now. I mean, I've seen it in conversations on, things like the Entree Architect Facebook page where people are talking about, hey, I've got, too much work. How do I say no? And you went, going back to when you said Cormac doesn't know how to say no. Well, architects don't really know how to say no
Yeah,
very well.
feast or famine, right? It's like
Exactly.
typical service-oriented business. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're just like, well, if I say no, then, what?
I
I
think
don't
that
know.
yeah, that goes deep into the evolution of humanity, right? It's like, no, I want to survive is what you're saying. No to survival is how
Exa-
you
ex-
feel. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
I just
Exactly.
can't do it. uh, but in the meantime, everybody gets to work through it, the insanity. And
I see that head, the light coming towards me.
yeah.
My guess, I'm guessing that it's the end of the tunnel and not a train.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll find
Yeah.
out when we get there.
Right. Right. I do see a lot of people posting on LinkedIn that they're hiring. So it does
Oh my
seem like
God.
things are picking up.
Yes.
But at the same time, I'm reading about how all the wood construction materials have,
Mm.
you know,
Oh my gosh. I mean, some of the memes that are out there for, I was having a conversation with somebody just yesterday, actually, and they were talking about, oh yeah, I went to Home Depot and a sheet of plywood was $85. I'm like, what?
yeah, right.
Was it
OSB was up
wrapped in
400%.
gold? You know,
Yeah.
and and you see people, because we've got tons of friends, architect friends that are, like do their own projects or
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, I'm, I've got this, and they like show a picture. I think one of our friends of the show was actually like, it showed a picture of, like a few sheets of plywood. And he's like, should I hold on to it? Like, man, you're sitting on gold.
Right. Right. But for how long?
Exactly.
But yeah, all the mills are there's so many factors that COVID
Oh
drove
yeah.
with that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I heard about that. OSB was up 400% originally. $9 for a sheet of OSB, and now it's $37 or whatever, $40. And it's like if you're going to build a house, which is, I mean, houses residential is wood in this country,
It's
right?
wood. Yeah. Yep.
And maybe it was artificially low before. I don't know, but the change is drastic, and that's what's shocking people. And but at the same time, like you're saying, you're busier than ever. People are hiring, so either they think it's going to go back down by the time the project gets built, or what, it's going to get shelved again because they can't afford it at that point when all the bids come in too high. What are you going to VE out of it? And it's always
Well,
going to be architecture. It's not going to be like floor space or floor area.
so we had been tracking through the pandemic. We had been tracking with the contractor, the CM on our project that just went out to bid, like probably about 2.5 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
We'd been tracking, what are the impacts on the market? What are the impacts for, potential delays? I mean, long lead items, are they longer? Are, just like regular materials like metal studs and stuff like that. I mean, what is the impact of all of this? And if they kept saying, oh, we really should buy now because, if you wait until this, starts to free up, then the demand's going to just grow exponentially and the prices are going to go skyrocket. So I know what the budget is for this project right now. And I'm really interested to see what it comes in when everybody, finally comes in because they're going to have to factor in whether or not they have to expedite material because of the schedule or things like that, or if it's even available. Thankfully, it's a high rise,
It's
so
not a wood building.
so it's not a wood building. It's steel and concrete and terracotta panels and,
Yeah.
curtain wall and stuff like that. But I mean, if you've got wood being affected like that, you're going to have other,
Yeah.
consumable items going to be the same.
Yeah, because people are going to
I
look for alternatives, right? And then
they're gonna be
it's
like,
going to
oh
impact
crap,
the other stuff, right?
I can't get a wood stud, so maybe I should get a metal stud.
Right.
And now everybody's like, oh, let's go get a metal stud. And and now like a 15-story building that's going to need a lot of metal studs is going to be like, oh, we just, raised our price
Yeah.
30%.
Demand went up. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, the reasons that they were citing were, number one, like obviously there were shutdowns, so
Yep. Yeah.
mills couldn't be open, and then they reopened kind of tentatively at lower capacities, right? And they also didn't foresee all of the home improvement that was going to happen, that demand, right? So not only did they not really ramp back up, but they didn't ramp back up enough for that new kind of surge that
Market that
happened.
would,
They
yeah,
weren't ready for
exactly.
that surge, and so yeah, now it's just they're so far behind. It's and
Yeah.
I was hearing like in California specifically that the bark beetles, that problem that's out here was one of the main causes of just a shortage of supply at all. But now I'm really hearing that it was the mills, and now they just can't keep up with the demand.
Oh yeah. 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 I mean, you're gonna see a clear cutting of the country.
Hmm.
Just like, I need wood, I need product, I need.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was up in Washington,
it's
and there's tons of logging going on. I mean, we're very actively, obviously, it's all planned way, way, way ahead of time, and so it wasn't out of the norm. But they're doing tons of logging, and in these places where they're doing some really great forestry management. But it's the mill is the bottleneck, right? It's not the supply of the raw material. It's the turning the raw material into the nominal lumber.
right, right.
It's a rough spot, man. So it is
Yeah.
interesting to kind of square the equation here, where there is so much hiring happening, and I just wonder, like, it seems like there's a lot more opportunity now than ever to do something about the existing buildings that are everywhere sitting empty, and
Yeah.
repurposing those for better, newer things. Not better, but different things, right? But a lot of people don't want that. They want their fancy building on their
Yeah, but
campus,
there's
and
it's still a catch-22 though, because that, well, at least I know for certain that for the scale of like new construction for, like, say, just um a high school. Let's just pick an archetype that you and I have worked on together,
hmm
like worked on before. So surprisingly enough, it actually costs more per square foot to renovate or revitalize
yeah, it just doesn't take as much
an older
material.
building.
Because
It
that's
doesn't
why I'm
take as
going that
much material.
direction, is because it's
Well,
already the
so
superstructure is already there.
yes, depending on, so like, yours is so what's interesting is here's a East Coast West Coast kind of like mentality. Is West Coast, you're like, well, the structure's already there, but your structure's not as old as like the structures I might be dealing
True.
with, like,
I'm
dealing with
thinking about all these giant warehouses that are just
like
you could
dealing
turn
with a
into anything.
120-year-old, wood frame brick clad building that we literally had to like cut all of the wood out of it
Right.
and
Or
replace
replace.
all of the wood
Yeah.
because it couldn't stand up to the current codes,
Right.
and it could barely stand up on its own regardless of code or not.
Jeez.
So so those are some interesting dynamics to do that too. So yeah, and actually, you hit it on with the home renovations. Hey, I'm going to be working from home.
hmm
I need to convert this, basement into an office in a school.
hmm
Or
hmm That's what I did.
I
Not a
exact
basement, but yeah, I converted
exactly.
one space into two offices and school, right? And
Yeah.
did it all myself. And luckily, I guess I beat the surge. Jeez, because I can't imagine, paying another 30% of what I
Right.
paid on top of that
Right.
to do it. I wouldn't have done it. Yeah, the budgets are real. So
Yeah.
that's also kind of
Yeah.
weird to me. It's like the budgets are real. Like the numbers aren't lying, and people are still choosing to move forward with it. Like they've
Yeah.
got to, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean, in the cases of like higher ed, I mean, the demand is back for like say, student housing or that new lab building or, something to keep them competitive with
Hmm.
the market out there for, for the new students. And, so they are going to have, newer state of the art living quarters or, teaching facilities and things like that. And so, yeah, I mean,
It's interesting. Like so I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and this guy teaches at a university, and it's like an economics teacher or something, and during the pandemic, he typically had a class size of 120, and they said, "Can you do 240 or whatever, 200 or 240?" And he was like, "Okay, I'll try it." And it wasn't any extra work for him to do that, right? And I've
in
had
the
a different experience than that. But
in the
technology
virtual,
basically, yeah,
right?
because it's all virtual, but
Yeah,
technology made it so that class size didn't matter. So honestly, he's like,
right.
honestly, it could be 1,000, it could be. So it's interesting to think because then it's like the reason that they went up for him is because students wanted to take his class.
Right.
It's not the class itself, it's his class in this instance. A very popular, well esteemed, highly esteemed professor, and obviously great ratings on whatever website or I'm sure the word's out. Got to take this one of these three professors, not these other five that offer the same course. So it's interesting to hear like colleges wanting to build these spaces to attract students. Obviously, technology matters, especially if it's hands-on labs and things like that. But we're also seeing a push for class sizes to increase, which can only be handled by technology in virtual space for
Mm.
certain professors teaching that course because of their method of teaching, their personality, whatever those things are that go into that part of the equation. And it's interesting to kind of just watch this happen with higher education institutions and how they're trying to figure out how to balance all of that because it is interesting. They first thought that we have to limit class size, and now class size is unlimited potentially depending on the class,
Right.
and they're
Right.
trying to figure out how to deal with that.
See, and that's just a interesting in its own right because much like how offices are starting to reassess whether or not they need these big spaces to house all of their employees or offer flex space for people who do want to come in or need to come in for like meetings or whatever, and then other people who want to just work from home.
Hmm.
I mean, school can maybe not necessarily like the K through 12, but higher ed definitely can do that.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm going on now like what, a year and a half of my son basically getting his college degree from his bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I'm
Right.
not necessarily sure he actually wanted to do that, but
Right.
the option was there and he took it and he kept going to school but he did it from the comfort of his own bedroom.
Yeah, and obviously there's upsides and downsides to that.
There is some, yeah,
But speaking
yeah,
of
and I
offices,
think
I was just reading Atlassian, I believe, was the company. They're Australian, and they make project management software like Trello. We've used that
mhm.
before in Jira.
Okay,
But
yeah,
they're going back to the offices 4 times a year. That's it.
that wow. I mean, and to think about it, it's interesting. I mean, we were just talking about in this new project that I'm working on, we were talking about travel. Because obviously, like every once in a great while, we're going to have to travel for project coordination, on-site construction, things like that.
Right.
But I mean, it was even said, it was just like, look, that this Teams call is a heck of a lot cheaper than five people hopping on a plane and
Right.
going overseas.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so 4 times a year. I mean, I would take 4 times a year over 0 times a year, and I would also take it more than
Yeah,
5 times a
absolutely.
week, right? Like,
Yeah,
it seems like a really
absolutely.
great balance to, because honestly, like we've talked about this in the past too, some people being in the office some of the time and having all of those staggered schedules is not going to be any better than what we're
Right,
experiencing right now.
right.
It it's not a level playing field. If you have people in a conference room and people on Zoom, it's not the same, and the people on Zoom are not going to get the same experience. And so you have to start enforcing behavioral change around equity of participation, right? And that's something we've never had to deal with before, and people are going to handle that very poorly, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because it's like, well, I'm here. I mean, we've seen this in architecture forever, right? It's a butt in seat
Mm-hmm.
mentality. If you're
Yeah.
not right there and I can't see you, you are not working on my project. I know it, right? You're on Facebook.
And the great thing is that we just proved them wrong.
Yeah,
But
but
the
that's still
last
going to
year
come
we've
back up.
well, true, but still, I mean, yeah, but that's only going to come up by the people who still are reluctant to change, or they like the norm of like being in the office and kind of like almost micromanaging people. and
Hmm.
and I've found that I've been able to like manage projects, big projects too, from the comfort of my home, from the comfort of their home, with just yes, I mean, we talk a lot on Zoom and things like that, but we're able to still be able to accomplish that stuff. And I don't see them face to face. I mean, we've had two times in the past year that I've actually seen my team, physically seen my team,
Right.
because we needed to present materials to the owner. And you can't like, ooh, and see, I'm gonna hold this up to the screen. Can you? Oh, it's not.
My
It's still
camera
blurry.
sucks. Sorry.
Hold on,
Oh, the lighting's
hold
no
on.
good.
Yeah, exactly. Can you? What do you think of this color?
And honestly,
Really,
like
you're not gonna.
you could do that stuff if you approach that
Well,
differently. But a lot of people are like,
actually,
no, this is
actually,
just a
what?
band-aid. We're going to get through this and we're going to go back to the office. So we're not going to invest into that.
Yeah, actually, what we were going to end up, what we were planning on doing for that meeting, that materials meeting, because it was a materials and colors meeting. And what we were going to do is we were going to we ordered two of everything, one for us and one for
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
client. And we went in, we marked up, where's this going to go,
Hmm.
created some boards and everything else, and took photographs and associated everything with renderings and everything else. And we were going to send it to her, and then basically hop on the Zoom and say, okay, if you pick up terracotta piece number one, and this is color Sierra High Country. I don't know. I'm just making a name up, you know. But what do you think of that? Well, but the thing is that what they really want to see is, this terracotta needs to match all of the historic brick on site. They need to be on site with that piece of terracotta and those bricks to see how it works together.
Hold it up. Yeah. Hmm.
Right. Why, the in person basically had to occur the way that it did. Otherwise, when you're doing like virtual walkthroughs, if you're doing it on the computer, okay. I mean, what's the difference from them sitting in the conference room with you kind of like surfing through,
Hmm.
like walking through an landscape versus, them sitting on their computer in the comfort of their home doing the exact same thing.
Yeah. I guess the difference there, and I realize that this is a complicated conversation to even stay on one side of, right?
Right.
Uh,
Exactly. Oh, yeah, yeah.
because honestly, like the reason we did that before was because it is about working with people, like and
Yes.
actually being there, right? That's part of what an architect sells is that process of inclusion throughout the design of the project.
True.
And to do that remotely and further remove ourselves, on some level from that equation is not good in the long run for the profession, I don't think. Right?
True. And it really starts to, in a way, and I know that this is kind of a weird tangent, but it starts to almost devalue our value, you know, because we're there, we're wanting to engage, we're wanting to talk about things and stuff. And the further and further we're detached from kind of like that almost hands-on,
Mm-hmm.
the more and more they're like, well, what do I really need them for? I don't really need them for CA, which they, definitely do. I don't need them to do this, if they're just going to send me a little package and stuff, I mean, I could go to Home Depot and pick out colors and stuff and say, I'm just going to go with this. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's an interesting slippery slope that it really is hard to kind of like. There are advantages to the architect, and employee of the architect, but then there's also a whole slew of, and as you were pointing out, disadvantages.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's going to be tough. It is going to be an interestingly tough thing to, but I think you said it like, some time ago that if you don't offer some form of like flexible hours where, they can work from home or work in the office, they're just going to go to the next job who does offer that,
All right.
you know,
Yeah.
and it's going to be harder and harder for people to retain or, acquire new talent.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, you've been surprisingly lucid. So it's one of two things. You're either on like wind number 4 or whatever, or you're just always super tired when we record, and this is just normal for you. So I can't tell which.
uh,
All bets are off
mhm.
here.
Yeah, I can't tell right now either.
Well, uh, good catching up.
I think I'm at was what's 5 hours past 29 hours?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't hit the 30, so I'm good.
That's no good. Yeah, that's when the battery actually shuts off. Like it's blinking red right now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like the when the battery goes bad in your smoke detector, and it's just like the little chirp. That's what you've been
You're
getting from
chirping.
me right now. It's just the chirp.